Back in January, Finland launched its highly anticipated Universal Basic Income Pilot project, where it gave 2,000 Finns X amount of dollars per month while still receiving standard state benefits. And they did this for two primary reasons. One, to assess the effectiveness of the UBI in comparison to standard state social welfare programs, and two, to assess the cost effectiveness. So the whole idea is to both get the recipients' input and ask them the type of impact that it's making in their lives, whether it's better or worse than standard social welfare programs. And also from a cost perspective, the government wants to find out whether giving people unconditional sums of money is more or less cheaper than its current ways of doing so. But it looks like Canada is the next country on the list to launch its own Universal Basic Income Pilot project. And Futurism, which reports this story, tells us that, quote, Premier Kathleen Wynne of Ontario announced the details of the Ontario Basic Income Pilot, a UBI program that will begin this spring and run for a period of 3 years. A total of 4,000 people from 3 areas, Hamilton, Thunder Bay, and Lindsay, will be receiving income. Quote, the project will explore the effectiveness of providing a basic income to people who are currently living on low incomes, whether they're working or not, said the Premier. She went on to say people participating in our pilot communities will receive a minimum income each year, a basic income, no matter what. Futurism continues. Single adults between the ages of 18 and 64 are eligible to receive $16,989 annually. Meanwhile, couples will be given roughly up to $24,000, and persons with disabilities would receive an added $6,000. Quote, it's not an extravagant sum by any means for a single person. We are talking about just under $17,000 a year, but even that amount may make a real difference to someone who's striving to reach for a better life, said the Premier. By now, most people have a pretty decent grasp of what encompasses a universal basic income. And it's actually not a very novel idea. The concept of the UBI has been around for many, many years, but it's only come to public light and received the amount of media attention it has amid several of the very devastating jobs reports that several research institutes have produced. And these reports have all pretty much put forward the same conclusion, and that's that we should expect mass job loss in coming decades due to increases in AI and machine learning and other forms of automation, essentially. And in light of that, several governments have done their best to prepare for such a future by discovering whether or not a UBI is feasible. There have been several experiments, like I mentioned earlier in the video. Finland launched a pilot project, the Netherlands as well. And it looks like Canada is finally doing the same thing. The only difference is that this project is being confined to the province of Ontario. And like the Finland project, I think most of us are going to be very much keen on discovering what the outcomes of such a project entails. It's important to emphasize that the Ontario UBI income is not necessarily put in play as a method to replace an existing amount of income. It's more of a supplementary thing. So while one may be making a low-skilled wage, let's say at Walmart, for example, and let's say they take home $20,000 a year, this extra $16,000 roughly is thought of to be used to help that person get by. Because even their combined income with the extra UBI comes to, I don't know, like $35,000, which is still not a lot of money. But like the Premier said, it could make a pretty important difference. Now, on that alone, I could see the merits in such a program. Now, fast forwarding several decades, let's envision a world where this automation is here and it's come faster and it's taken even more jobs than we originally anticipated. And in this universe, let's imagine that the vast majority of jobs are done by robots. Will a UBI be enough for everyone to live decently? I could see how using this project in a group of 2,000 or 4,000 people is more than good enough. But as a country of 35 million, like Canada, will the government have the funds to distribute that amount of money? That's really interesting, and I honestly don't know the answer to that. But to be honest, part of me thinks no. Even amid the anticipated economic growth, which will definitely come to Canada in the coming decades. But I don't know, I'm not an expert on this. I guess it seems that we just have to let this project play out and let experts decide how to proceed going forward. And one other thing, going back to our dystopian future where all the good jobs are done by robots, one question we need to ask ourselves is, how dependent do we want to be on the state? So today, a lot of people advocate social programs and government intervention under the guise that such a government can create value for a lot of people. And while that's true in many respects, most people subscribe to those ideas knowing that they're not 100% dependent on the government. Now, if we live in a world where, humans have essentially lost the ability to earn an income, we are in many ways completely dependent on our government. And I don't know about you, I don't really know how I feel about that. And when you give any institution a lot of power, it can still lead to abuse and corruption. And that's something humans have been dealing with since as long as we've been around. Corruption and dictatorships and things like that, those aren't elements of the past. They're still here today. And even in this technologically advanced society, which we will most likely belong to going forward, those elements are still there. And we honestly really need to consider those things going forward. But, I guess that's what these tests are for. And I really hope that the experts who are examining the results of such a project are taking into consideration macro theories as well. Now, to end this on a lighter note, I imagine they are. In this age of the internet where ideas can be communicated to the masses upon millions, I have hope that we can get through this. But this is a pretty interesting article. I've been waiting for Canada to let publicly known its plans for UBI. And I'm, like you, pretty excited to read the results when they're done in the next few years. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any insightful comments to be made, I highly encourage you to write those comments below and share your knowledge with me and anybody else watching this video. I think this is one of the biggest challenges the human race is going to face. A jobless economy. How do we change our society to work for the vast majority of people? That's a huge task, and it's going to take a global effort. But I'd like to know how you think we can make that happen, or if you have any alternative ideas outside of the UBI that you think would make a pretty huge impact. So please like and subscribe to this channel if you're into this sort of content. I do my best to analyze articles and encourage people like you to contribute as well. But thank you so much. Have a great weekend, and I'll catch you in the next one. Later.